Hi, Tina.
Hey, Tina.
So,
Hey, Tina.
Hi.
Hey, Bob.
so for the
Hi,
residents,
how are you?
so for the residents that called in, just want you to be aware at hatfield.org are all of the slides that we will be talking about this evening throughout the presentations and throughout the agenda items. So I know the residents can only call in, and there's more people coming. Residents can only call in, whereas participants will video in. So anybody calling in, if you want to follow along with the slides, please just go to hatfield.org, and at the top there's a link to all of the PowerPoint slides that we'll be showing tonight. And we have more people joining us. Mr. President, I'll defer to you to get us rolling.
Okay, we're all set and ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, well then, I'm going to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting for December 16, 2020. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Lees.
Here.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Here.
I'm going to ask that Chief Bill Tierney lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight for a very specific reason, and that is everyone knows that this has been a very difficult year, and not only has all of our staff done a fantastic job, but public safety in particular has done an absolutely wonderful job this year. In recognition of that, Bill, if you would lead us in the pledge.
Sure. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to
the
the flag of
United
the
States,
United States of America,
to
to the republic for which it stands,
one
a
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we begin, I need to announce that the board met in executive session to discuss real estate and personnel. All right, with that, we're going to move approving tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Second. Vice President Rogers, second by Commissioner Andrus. All in favor of approving the agenda that is on your screen, and before you say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we can move forward with that agenda. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments on agenda items? Okay, not hearing anyone. I'm going to move into our consent items. Is there a motion to move into the record the consent items listed in your agenda?
So moved. So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Commissioner Lees, I think, and I believe second by Commissioner Andrus. Those items include the Board of Commissioners regular meeting minutes for November 18, the Board of Commissioners workshop meeting minutes of November 4, the police report for the month of November, treasurer's report for the month of December, and bills payable, paid bills, none for this month, unpaid bills in the amount of $423,735.04. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor of moving those items into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, those are moved into those consent items are moved into the record. So, folks, we have a very special recognition tonight, and I believe that John and his wife Karen are on the phone. And we are recognizing John, and both of them really, but tonight is a little bit John's special night for having spent 19 years, almost 20 years on the North Penn Water Authority. And as you're going to hear a couple of notes that I jotted down that Aaron and I took a little bit of, this is your life. We're going to walk you through, John. You might remember some of these other volunteer moments that you've had. So as I mentioned earlier, John has been with the, on behalf of Hatfield Township, he's been a volunteer board member for the Water Authority for 19 years. For those who don't know, being on the board of the Water Authority is not a particularly flashy position. Most public meetings are not well attended. I can tell from their expression that means that probably rarely, if ever, attended. However, I'm sure it was attended when somebody had a difficult problem or something that they needed to complain about. And for those of you who know John, I'm sure you know that he probably fixed their problem, and he did it with grace and ease and a smile that never really seems to leave his face. And so we were very proud and continue to be proud to have him in Hatfield, but we were very proud to have him represent us for all of those years on the Water Authority. So for almost 2 decades, for those who don't know what the Water Authority does, it really is, it's our connection to water throughout the township. And for almost 2 decades, John helped make sure that the water was clean. And this is important stuff. It's water that we drink. It's water that we literally shower and bathe ourselves and our children in for safety's sake. This is water that's used to feed our lawns, our flowers, anything that you use water for. It's a necessity in the community, and John made that happen for all of these years. Now, I said earlier that it's John's night, but it's really Karen's nights too, because one of the things that we like to do is recognize spouses. Those of you who regularly attend, evening meetings and are a spouse of someone who is everything from a consultant to a volunteer, know that there's many a night when they are away from the house, they're away from the family, and they give up very important and meaningful family time in order to volunteer. And it takes a special person to support that. And for 19 years, Karen did that for us. So maybe she wasn't at the meeting. Maybe she wasn't making the decision during the board meeting, but you know what? She was taking care of everything at the house and for the family while John was tied up. And Karen, for that, we can't thank you enough for many, not just those 19 years, but for the many other volunteer moments that John had. So now he also, if you don't know this, John spent 35 years. John, I didn't know this. Aaron found this for me. 35 years in his professional capacity with North Penn School District. Facilities, handling all the facilities with the safety and security, design, planning, and construction. Now, I have to tell you, I have a little bit of understanding in this area because I've worked in the construction industry on and off for a couple of years in my professional career. And I can tell you that is not sometime an enviable position or an enviable role that he had to do.
That's for sure.
And I would say that it was aptly described. The facilities director role is aptly described as the unsung hero of the school district.
Amen.
Person who puts up with everyone else's problems and their anxieties and then goes out and fixes them. And it takes a special person to be able to do that for so many years. And I have to tell you, I know this firsthand, John was very successful in that position. I mentioned earlier, for those of you who know him, I've known John for many years. Our paths haven't crossed as much as they used to. But anytime I see him, I don't care if it's been a week since I saw him when we saw each other more often, or it could be a year. The smile was always there and the well wish was always there. And I have to tell you, it's with a heavy heart that he's retiring from the North Penn Water Authority, but it is with a great smile that I have on my face, and I think others do too who've worked with him, that they can think of those times where you just saw him or spoke to him on the phone, and the ease with which he speaks to you, the ease with which he just handles your problems. He's a very special person, and we're very happy to be recognizing him tonight. In addition to all of these things, I did not know that John was a lifelong member for 30 years and vice president of North Penn Volunteer Fire Company.
And he was president.
What's that? It was president? Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't know that.
And deputy chief.
What's that, Karen?
And deputy chief.
Oh,
for
I
years.
didn't realize. And when you hear those things, it just adds to it, because I know that those are positions and roles that take up a lot of time, and they're the people who are responsible for fixing everyone else's problems, just like he did for North Penn and just like he did for the North Penn Water Authority. Not to be, to forget that he was also on the North Wales Water Authority board for 6 years. Did we get that right?
Yes.
Okay. He's a volunteer board member at his church, and even was an elected official as a councilman for North Wales Borough for over 5 years, serving both as vice president and president of the board. So there are at least 5 of us on this phone call who know who know exactly how you feel. And again, that's quite an achievement. John, I have to tell you, you have done more in your life than probably many of us combined. And so with that, I want to pass on that on behalf of the entire Board of Commissioners, and I mean this, not just on behalf of the board, but on behalf of all of Hatfield, all the things that you've done, a well-deserved retirement from the water authority. Thank you for everything that you've done. And I'd really like everyone, if you would, I know we're on, these Zooms and whatnot, but I'd like you to show your appreciation, John, with some applause. And
Thank you, John.
I wish we could have
Thank
you in
you.
person. I wish we could have you in person and we would give you the proclamation. We're going to have to send you the proclamation we're putting together with
Okay.
to your house. And you know what, when this is all over and done, or when things get better, whatever time frame we can figure out that you can come in and stop in and just say to us, we would be thrilled. And Karen, please come along with him. We would be thrilled to have both of you, even if you just stopped in and just said hi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
And thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the kind words.
There's no way to thank you other than just, you're going to be, like I said, you're going to be missed. This is a well-deserved retirement and we've got very big shoes to fill. So thank you both.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Yep.
And thank you all for your service.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we're going to move on to our committee reports. First is Planning and Zoning Committee, Vice President Rogers.
Thank you. The first item is the sewer lateral inspection ordinance. That's a continued discussion. I'm not sure who wants to pick that one up.
Paul, I'll do a quick intro before you get going, because usually Bob throws it over to Ken, but this topic's a little different. Commissioners, as you know, about roughly a month ago, we introduced this topic to the board and to the community about the idea of having inspections required at a sale for these laterals that connect to the public sewer system. So there were a lot of questions, a lot of really good questions by the board. So we brought the experts in, because most of the questions you asked me, as Pete reviewed the film or the tape, he saw that I was completely wrong in most of my responses. So the people that know stuff are here. I've got some slides to accompany their discussion, but we have Paul, who's the solicitor of HTMA, and Pete, as you know, the executive director. And I think Paul's going to start off by answering a lot of the questions, and then Pete will get into a little more of the operational. One thing, Paul, before you go, before you start, I just wanted to point out, Commissioner Andrus, you had asked me, and I think this is important for the community to know this. You had asked me, in a heavy rainstorm, what's the percentage increase of infiltration in the system? And I said 40%.
And you
I
thought
just
you were
made that
estimating
up.
high.
So it turns out, after talking to Pete, it's more like 700%. Pete, is that more accurate?
That's closer.
So they'll get into that more, but I think what's important to know is there's a problem, right? And I didn't identify it as specific as it deserves. So I'm going to hand it over to Paul to answer some questions, and to Pete to provide some supplemental info, and we'll have some graphics as well. So Paul, floor is yours. I'll stop talking.
All right, thank you, Aaron. I'm just gonna blitz through the background a little bit, just because I've lost power twice in the last hour. So crazy times with the snowstorms, but I do want the residents who are on, in case they don't know what the lateral ordinance is, just to get a little bit of the background. And essentially, the lateral inspection ordinance is exactly what it sounds like. It's an ordinance that requires the inspection of the private laterals for a residence or a business prior to them connecting to the authority system. And I think Aaron's going to throw up, Aaron threw up the slide. So essentially everything that is gray on that slide is what would be required to be inspected. The reason we want these inspected is because we want to see if there's any defects in the lateral itself, or if there are any cracks which allow I&I, which is inflow and infiltration, which is essentially just groundwater, to get into the lateral. And the reason you don't want to see any of that is if there's a defect in the line, you can end up with a backup of sanitary sewer into your basement. And that is pretty much as gross as it sounds. And you don't want to see that. And if there are cracks in the line, which allows water into the system. That then goes into the authority's mains, and if it overflows the mains, it results in what's called a sanitary sewer overflow. And essentially what happens is sanitary sewer will pop out of the manholes and get onto the township streets. That is also as gross as it sounds, and something nobody wants to see, including the Department of Environmental Protection. They are essentially the ones who are driving the ship here. They have been speaking to the authority for a few years, basically requiring us to look at a lateral inspection ordinance. And initially it was just some comments in passing, but more recently it has actually been comments in our review letters asking us to adopt a sanitary lateral inspection ordinance. DEP has the authority to require every resident and business in the township to have their laterals inspected. They have done this in the past. They've done it in East Norton. They've done it in Cheltenham Township. And so we are trying to get out ahead of this while we can, and while we still have some control over the process. And we know that DEP will accept a lateral inspection ordinance tied to the transfer of properties. They have done that in 9 municipalities in Montgomery County at this point. Hatfield Township would be the 10th, and Hatfield Borough is running parallel with us, so they will also be looking to adopt one early in 2020. So essentially what our goal is to have this ordinance adopted by March, which is when we submit our Chapter 94 report. And we want to be able to put a note in there that we have adopted a lateral inspection ordinance. That way we'll keep DEP happy. And again, the proposed ordinance is only going to be tied to transfers in the property, which is essentially a sale of a property. So last meeting, and Pete's going to jump in with some slides and other things, but there were a bunch of questions asked at the last meeting. I'm going to run through some of them, and then Pete's going to run through the I&I, as Aaron indicated earlier, just basically going through what we've done to already address our system problems before we get to the private laterals, which DEP is now requiring. The first question that was asked was, what actually triggers the lateral inspection? As previously written, the ordinance was required on any transfer that would trigger a UNO within the township. The UNO in the township is actually much more broad than we anticipate for our lateral inspection ordinance. One of the examples given at the meeting was if, and I believe it was one of the commissioners actually owns property, and said rental property, and said, hey, if I end up setting up a single LLC, a single member LLC, would that trigger the lateral inspection ordinance? Under the previous UNO, it would. As rewritten, it will not. We have triggered it to just when there are arm's length transactions. So essentially when, there are both sides have equal bargaining power. So for example, if a woman owns property in the township and she gets married and puts the husband on the deed, that won't trigger the UNO. It'll only be arm's length transactions where the buyers and sellers each have equal footing and have the benefit of the bargain. So that is how we were trying to address that. The second question that was asked, and obviously if anybody has any questions, feel free to cut me off, but the second question that was asked is, what does the inspection actually entail? It is literally a televising of the entire length of the private lateral. So if Aaron throws back up that slide, it is literally everything in the gray area, the gray pipe before it actually touches the authority's lateral. For some properties that can be very lengthy. One of our board members at the authority has about a 300-foot run, but essentially what will happen is they'll put a camera up, they will run the entire length of the lateral, they'll look for either leaks in the pipe, defects in the pipe, any cracks, any broken seals or joints, and essentially they will videotape it. They will send that tape to the authority can then review it to check to make sure whether a lateral is in fact clean and able to be passed, or whether it actually needs some repairs. And the other one was, there was some question about why we have to do an inspection for new laterals or new construction. the way the ordinance was previously written was that any new construction is when the property is sold from the builder to the homeowner, that does not require an inspection. And then you had a 1-year grace period thereafter for the requirement of any inspections. Pete and I have batted this around a little bit, and we agree that once you have PVC pipe and the new piping, it's not necessarily a requirement once it comes. However, the way we've triggered it is the first transfer has to be inspected, and then there's a grace period of 5 years thereafter for the second transfer. And the reason is within that first year, even if the trench is dug properly, and even, obviously we're inspecting it, there can still be settlement. So we want to take a look at the first transfer to make sure that the pipe itself doesn't have any defects. Thereafter, any transfer will be graced in for 5 years. And with that, I will kick it over to Pete to talk about the I&I, unless there are any questions.
I have a question, sir. I know initially we were talking about the inspections had to be done by a licensed plumber.
Yes.
Can we allow licensed home inspectors to do that as well? Because I have had sewer lateral inspections done on my property by a licensed home inspector. In another municipality, he ran the camera through and that was acceptable. Is that acceptable to the authority?
If they have the equipment and expertise, I don't know that we would have an issue with it. Again, if the way it's written right now is for a licensed plumber. If somebody has the expertise and the knowledge, because again, ultimately we want to see the video. So if we get a video and it's done properly, we'll be able to tell whether there are any issues with the lateral.
Sounds good. Thank you.
If
You're
there's
up, Pete.
questions, Pete, you can jump in.
All right, Aaron, can you put up that township wide slide? So what this is a map showing the entire township. A number of years ago, the department wanted us to do a comprehensive study of the entire township as far as the areas that are the worst for inflow and infiltration. That entailed, I think, approximately 7 different flow meters positioned by our engineer around the township at areas that they picked that would be representative of the major watersheds. The result is this map. The green area where you see on the right-hand side mostly is areas that at this point don't have to be studied further more intensely. Eventually they will, but right now they can be assumed to be in pretty good shape. There are a couple individual lines in there that we're concerned with, but as far as the watershed itself goes, it's not that bad. The yellow to the left would be the next, I think that's yellow, tan, yellowish. On the left-hand side of the screen is the next worst, I guess, not worst, but next bad section of the township where the infiltration is high, infiltration and inflow is high, and then the pink is the areas of the township where it's very high. So when we're not doing other work with our road crew, what we do is go around to those areas that we know are the worst. And we have a 4-man road crew that is out a lot televising the lines. If they find problems that they can fix, they'll fix the lines. If they can't fix them, we'll either hire an excavator or somebody that comes out with lining equipment and put liners in the line. We've done a lot of spot liners ourselves. One example, Aaron, if you could put that leaky sewer line up for me. That's an example of leaks that not typical, but not atypical that we find in the sewer system. That's an 8-inch pipe there, and that was during dry weather. There is the same pipe after we've installed a liner. So we're reaching about 100 of those little liners that are 18 inches long. Well, we don't have to do the whole line. You can see the difference that makes when we put the liner in. cracks, root removal. Those are the other kind of things our crew does, but mostly we're looking for leaks and trying to fix leaks. And we've been doing that for, it seems like forever.
Pete, is that liner a mechanical liner or is it an epoxy that's attached?
Or is it a what?
Isn't it like an epoxy that you're spraying
That
on?
one
or is it
there,
mechanical?
that one there that we have the ability to do both. That one
Okay.
there is a stainless steel liner. That's a mechanical liner. It goes in with a packer. The packer expands it, and it has all it's like little locks on it,
Yeah.
ratchet locks that go and open up and lock into place.
Okay.
But we do have liners that are epoxy based, and we have we can put them in also. These are a little
Right.
more expensive, but they're very, very much quicker.
Okay. And Pete, on that, Aaron, can you go back to that chart, the showing the township? Did you say the green on the far right was good? Yellow is okay and pink is terrible?
Yellow is not okay. Yellow is between green and pink. Yellow is still a lot of infiltration, but pink is just, I'd like to say horrendous. It's very, very bad.
And so, and how do you know that? By measuring infiltration?
By
on
measuring the flow, and then we have a control basin in the middle of there that is used as a kind of a where you compare the other basins to, and you compare the amount of flow per EDU
Okay.
for those individual basins.
And is the severity of the leak because of age? Because of construction? What makes that? Because I'm thinking my neighborhood's in the pink zone, and I'm wondering why we would be identified as being terrible.
Well, it could be a combination of all of those. It could be age. As far as the older pipe in the township, it's clay pipe for the main sewer lines, and it's a lot of the private laterals are cast iron pipe. So a lot of the cast iron pipe, being 50, 40, 30 years old, is starting to degrade in the ground.
Okay.
When that happens, it starts to leak. But there's also in the road, clay pipe settles and the joints come apart, and
I have a long charger.
Give me an extension cord. Okay. And
manholes deteriorate.
And so is the majority of the infiltration from the laterals, or are they from the mains?
I would believe, and so does DEP, that it's from the laterals.
Okay.
Their experience, they obviously have a lot more experience in many townships than I do, but they have always been leaning towards the private laterals are the biggest source of the infiltration.
Okay. Thank you.
So these are, just to give you a little background of what we've done over the last 10 to 15 years. So right about when the Snyder Square housing development was starting, which was many years ago, I think 2008, 2006, somewhere around then, we had some issues with the sewer line going down to the plant. It was undersized. It wasn't carrying the flow. We had a lot of infiltration, and there was SSOs reported to DEP. So at that point, they put the township on a connection management plan and required us to do something about it. So at that time, we started replacing the interceptor from our plant up to our Villa Road, which would allow more flow that was coming into these lines to get down to the plant. Simultaneously, we built these 2 4 million gallon wet weather storage tanks to handle excess flow, because our plant can only handle so much flow at one time. You can get as much flow as you want down to the plant, but you can only handle so much. So that excess flow, when we have heavy rains, is stored in these tanks. After the rain stops, after the flows and through the plant start to go down, we can then start releasing this excess flow back through the plant. So to give you some ideas about the 40% increase in flows that we see, our average daily flow is probably in the area of 5 MGD, 6 MGD now. It's been about 6 the last couple of years, but the last couple of years have been a little bit wetter than historically. So if you're talking 5 or 6 as an average daily flow, if we have 1.5 to 2 inches of rain, it's very easy in a dry period, it's very easy to our flow to go up to 24 MGD. That's as much as our plant can handle. So anything above 24 MGD, we have to divert to these tanks. There are times when we are diverting to these tanks as much as we can pump, which is another 16 MGD. So you do the math and you can see how much flow is coming into the system. We could build larger tanks. We could build bigger lines, but the DEP has pretty much told us that they don't want us to see us doing that anymore. The goal is to reduce flow, not to just allow it to continue to get worse and not address it.
So of all the repairs, so you've been doing repairs, has that been measurable in the decreased decreased inlet during storms, or is not even measurable because the leaks are so great that you're not able to measure an improvement?
A little bit of both. It's measurable in areas where we've done the work.
Okay.
But as an overall plant-wide flows, you really can't say that it has. And every storm is different. And when it hits, what time of year it hits is different. So it's not like you can just, okay, let's compare this storm with this storm. Groundwater levels might be up, but in the areas that we were able to get pretty comparable weather conditions, and then a before and after, we have seen improvement in what we've done, but not a drastic improvement.
Okay. And have you ever gotten close to where you're crossing your fingers and hoping it stops raining so you don't spill sewage out on the street?
Absolutely.
You've gotten that close?
Continuously, yeah. We're yes, it's not uncommon to hope that it stops raining.
Okay.
Commissioner, Pete spends the night at the facility when it rains because he's concerned about that. He will spend the entire night there.
Yeah, spending any time there, it really stinks.
Well done.
That's a pun, huh?
All right. So I think I understand the importance of getting these laterals done. Thank you.
I just have a question. Does the authority have any authority to put in a requirement for all homeowners, or is that left up to the township?
That's actually a township requirement. Again, we have the authority over our own mains. The township's actually responsible to inspect the private laterals. So basically, you guys brought us in because we deal with the sewer in general. But if DEP enforces the lateral inspection, they're going to do it against the township, not the authority.
Okay. And is there any opportunity to reduce the cost of these camera views by having somebody from the sewer authority doing it and them getting paid?
My concern there would be the sewer authority, the Municipality Authorities Act has a provision in it that says we are not allowed to compete with private enterprise. Again, technically, the laterals are not part of our system. They flow into our system, so we could try and make an argument to say, yes, we can do it. But if challenged, it's not clear that we would win that.
Okay.
So under the current plan we're putting in place, knowing what our turnover is in terms of real estate sales, how long would it take to get 100% compliance?
What's your I don't even know what your Darren, do you know the turnover?
Oh, I did know this number. It would take a long time, Commissioner.
So, you know, as much as I don't like having people do unnecessary work, if the choice is to have overflow sewage onto the streets, and maybe it takes 20 years to get this done, and maybe this is not fast enough. And perhaps there ought to be some other method or vehicle to kick in and have this done quicker. Prevent that plant from overflowing and to prevent any sewage discharge to the streets or public waterways.
Well, Commissioner, I jump in on that. I mean, I think it's a valid point. I think this would be a good first step. And then review it over a period of time, maybe 5 to 10 years, and see if there's been a significant impact made. But if not, I think even if we wanted to or not, I think we're probably at some point, if what you're saying is true, and it might be, is that we'll be put in that situation where we're going to have to do something more aggressive. But, you know, at every turn, really, our intentions was to not create a financial burden on our community, which I know you understand that. And so we thought at a time of sale was the best time. Not perfect by any means. It's not going to solve the problem tomorrow. It is going to take time. And I do have an average number of UNOs that we issue a month. And I don't want to say it out loud because I feel like it's wrong, but it would take a significant period of time, but it would still be better than what we have now.
Right. And Pete, does the DEP have a timeline to finish 100%, or putting this program in place would satisfy them in the near term?
They have not come up with any specific timeline for finishing this. I do know that one of the other things that they recommend or tell some people that they should do is replace their sewer lines every 20 years. So you could imagine how much that would be ripping up the township. We have 83 miles of sewer lines. To do, you know, that much every year would be
wow,
astronomical. And that's something else that they've tried to have other townships do. So this is their suggestion. Actually, they wrote it in a letter to the township, and you know, obviously we want to help in whatever way we can to you know, because we inspect lines, we know what's going on out there, we know how to read those inspections, and ultimately we're the ones that get yelled at.
I understand. You're saying they want the mains be replaced every 20 years, or the laterals every 20 years?
The mains.
The mains,
They've gone to townships and said that they should have a program. So basically 5% of your sewer lines every year.
Well, can you imagine if New York City did that?
No.
That's gotta be terrible. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, essentially what they would do is when they are ignored outright, they pretty much do township wide. We want all the laterals inspected. If we pass this ordinance and there are still some issues going forward, they will probably look at Pete's map and say, okay, this pink area, that's an issue. We want you to address all of those in the township as opposed to a township wide swath.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm
Aaron,
good.
what's our next step? Where do we go from here? I know we've had the lateral conversation a couple of times over a few meetings, and we definitely wanted to get Pete and Paul here to give us the guidance they have.
We would need an authorization to advertise. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yeah, Mr. President, I think what I'd like to see happen is another public discussion. What I'm a little bit worried about is I know there's some people really concerned about this, and that they're most likely not going to be calling into our Zoom meetings.
Okay.
So, you know, if we could, I know Paul's time frame, and Pete, you know, maybe we can have one more in-person discussion with our community in a few months before we advertise the ordinance.
I'm very comfortable with that because it's an important issue, and it's tough for people to capture it given the, you know, the environment we're all living in. If Pete and Paul, if a couple extra months is some leeway that you think makes sense without, you know, having a significant negative impact, that would be my route as well.
Yeah, I think that works. Again, we would like to have it in our Chapter 94 report in March. Worst case scenario, you know, we let DEP know that, you know, it's going to be passed sometime soon. But, you know, if the discussion's in January or February, and then it gets passed at your March meeting, that works as well.
Okay. Well, why don't we, Aaron, why don't we plan on keeping a review of it, meaning review whether we're having in-person meetings in January and February, and if we're able to do it, we bring the troops back together for another conversation and try and meet that time frame if we can.
Sure.
Okay. Well, Pete, Paul, thank you very much for, really explaining this to us in a way that we would understand.
Welcome.
That's greatly appreciated. Bob, do you have more under?
Yeah, we have a couple more items. The next item is 2801 Township Line Road Land Development Discussion. Mr. Amy, you take this?
I will take this, Commissioner Rogers. Thank you. This is a land development application for approximately 77 acres of property located, as you can see on the map here where the star is. This is located between Berge Road and Township Line Road. The old Standard Press Steel building, which most recently, I think most of us know as the Gretz property, now owned by a real estate developer from Conshohocken, and the tenant is Penn Beer and will continue to be Penn Beer in the main building. The proposal involves construction of 2 new buildings, each 168,000 square feet, along with 1 smaller building out adjacent to Township Line Road, which is approximately 32,000 square feet, and an 83,000 square foot addition to the main building itself. The applicant has been through the planning process. The plans have been reviewed by the township engineer, the traffic engineer, the county planning commission. They've been recommended for approval by the township planning commission and the county planning commission. They've been discussed at the planning and zoning subcommittee meeting, and we also have a favorable review letter from the township fire marshal. So at this point, the project is ready for the board's action. We did discuss this on November 4th at a workshop meeting with the intent to bring it before the board for final approval at the November 18th meeting. However, there were a couple of details to be worked out, and that brought us to tonight's meeting. So at this point, the resolution's been prepared by the solicitor's office. It's been signed by the applicant. Daniel Rowley, who is the applicant's attorney, is here, along with Jeff Bevan, their engineer. So I'm sure that they would be happy to answer any questions the board might have about the application.
Any questions from commissioners or residents? We had a number of questions when you guys were in front of us the last time, so I think you probably satisfied a lot of those inquiries back then.
Mr. President, if you don't mind, if I could just jump in just as the moderator here. I'm going to unmute. We have, by the looks of it, we have 2 residents that have called in that I'm going to unmute. And remember, residents, all of these slides are available on hatfield.org. If you want to follow along, you can see exactly where this land development is located. I'm going to unmute our residents in case there is a comment. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, John and Ken, it's not listed as an action item for tonight. Do we move this to our next meeting? Is that the intent, or?
Yeah, Mr. President, if I could just jump in, the format's a little different tonight because we only have 1 meeting. I do have later on the agenda the action item to approve this.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
yeah,
that's
you're
my
right.
fault.
Yeah, no, that's my fault. I didn't realize that those were the 2. Those are 2 separate items, and I didn't realize the second was an action item.
We combined the workshop and the regular meeting tonight.
Yeah.
So we just had the workshop discussion, and later on in the meeting, we'll have the chance for the board to vote.
Yeah, that slipped my mind. So, okay. Well, if there isn't any other questions or comments, why don't we have Bob continue through his committee, his committee reports, and then we'll have that as an action item in a few minutes.
Okay, the last one that we're looking at tonight is the Polti Homes, land development, the final approval discussion.
Yes, thanks, Commissioner Rogers. This Polti Homes is another project that's been discussed a number of times by the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners. In fact, this project received preliminary approval by resolution, I believe it was resolution 19-28 about a year ago for preliminary approval. The plans have not changed substantively since, and the applicant has come back with an application for final approval. This was, we were preparing to bring this before the board in October or November. However, when the final architectural plans were prepared, it was discovered that some canopies over the side entry townhouse units required relief from setback requirements in, I believe it was 28 or 29 cases on the townhouse units. There was no relief necessary for the single family homes, but just for the townhouse units. And so the applicant went to the zoning hearing board in November, received approval for those minor encroachments, and they are back before the board now requesting final approval. The plans have been reviewed by all of our regular reviewing agencies, the township engineer, the traffic engineer, the landscape architect. The planning commission has reviewed them, and the fire marshal has reviewed them as well. So at this point, the project is ready for board approval. A resolution was prepared by Ms. Bianzio and was executed by the applicant in advance of tonight's meeting. And just, I probably should have done this at the beginning, but just to remind everybody, this is a 321 unit age restricted community that's proposed to be built along 40-foot road adjacent to the Ralph's Corner subdivision on property that was owned by the Baum family. I think the intent is to start construction sometime next year, and so the request for final approval is before you this evening. So Mr. Coles is here along with representatives from Polti and George Hartman, their civil engineer, if the board has any questions for them.
Any questions from commissioners or residents? Okay. All right. Well, Bob, I think that's, if you have anything else on your committee report.
No, that's it tonight. Thank you.
Okay. We'll save those two items for action items. Next is Public Works Committee, Commissioner Lees.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to be looking for a motion to authorize payments number 6 and 7, totaling $243,210.96 to Blooming Glen for the most recent work submitted for the Cowpath on our Villa Road project. We have a drone image to share from yesterday at the intersection, thanks to a local realtor, Dave Tooley. Aaron, do you have that up? I can't tell if you do or not. The lane markings were scheduled to be painted tomorrow, but that is postponed because of the snowstorm. Hopefully the lanes can be painted early next week and the road will be open before Christmas. Please remember that the final paving will be done in the spring of 2021. Also, speaking of snowstorms, our public work crews will be very busy over the next 36 hours dealing with the significant snow event. Please help them out by getting your car and garbage cans out of the road. And when you see them out there, a friendly wave and a thanks goes a long way. You'd be shocked to hear some of the from the residents. Hopefully most of you can stay home for the next day or so. But for those of you who will be heading to work, we will make sure the roads are cleared and it's safe as soon as possible.
Sure. I just have one comment is along the lines of Public Works. I think they did a fantastic job on the Fricks Trail down by Sterling Drive. The fencing looks really nice. The additional park benches that were put in, the clearings. I had the opportunity to use that during Thanksgiving with my grandson on my back, 22 pounds, and it felt really good to be able to sit out. No, they did a fantastic job. They put additional stone in there. They trenched it out so that all the runoff goes down into the creek, and it really looks nice. So they did a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
All right, Greg, if there's a motion that's under your report, is there a motion to approve that $243,210.96 to Blooming Glen, Inc. for Cowpath and Orvilla project for payment 6 and 7? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Rogers,
Second.
Second.
second by Commissioner Lees. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the motion that's before you, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Greg, anything else under Public Works?
No, sir, Mr. President. That's everything. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Parks and Recreation Committee, Commissioner Zimmerman.
Okay, and as usual, we've got lots going on. There's a holiday lights competition. Last chance to register because tomorrow judging starts. You need to register at www.hatfieldrec.com, and you're going to submit photos of your house to holidaylights@hatfield.org. And like I said, the judging will start tomorrow through the 20th, and you could win a prize. If you're not into decorating your house for the contest, you have another opportunity for gingerbread decorating that kind of house. And again, register at the same website, hatfieldrec.com, purchase a kit at the store or make one from scratch, submit photos of your entry, and do that by the 28th of December. Other winter activities, we have a challenge going on. If you're looking for fun things to do this winter, are you already trying new activities to keep the family entertained? Then this program is for you. Participate in our winter activity challenge by completing different activities from 5 categories. You're going to collect points for each activity that you complete and take photos along the way to document your completion. Once you've collected 250 total points, submit your checklist and photos to Hatfield Township Parks and Rec to receive $25 credit to be used for any future registration. And again, information, rules, and checklists can be found at hatfield.org or stop by the building. We're going to still have some exercise classes, virtual yoga in January on Thursday, starting on the 7th at 7 p.m. It's going to be a Zoom link, so you can do it from your own home. And there is a charge for residents and non-residents, I think. We've got virtual Zumba on Sundays, starting on the 10th of January, virtual Tai Chi, starting on Wednesdays, the 6th of January. And then another story time series for January. The featured book is called There Was a Cold Lady Who Swallowed Some Snow by Lucille Calandro. Registration's $5, includes a storybook and craft kit. Children can read the stories and complete and explore the kit individually or do it as a family. Registered participants can pick up their books and activity kits between January 14th and the 29th. Again, email pictures of the family reading and completing the crafts to storybook@hatfield.org by February 1st to be included in our January Storytime series post. And for the whole family, a trivia night also in January on Thursday, the 14th from 7 to 8. You can register your team and participate via Zoom or Kahoot, and the winning team will receive a prize. And a special thank you to all the residents who participated in our 2020 Hatfield Giving Tree. Thanks to the amazing efforts, the Hatfield community, we were able to help out additional families this year. So thanks again to everyone who participated and great work in the community. And that's it.
All right, great stuff. Public Safety Committee, nothing to report this evening.
Hey, Tom, just one real quick, Tom.
Yep.
I think Commissioner Zimmerman had mentioned Ashley's done a tremendous job given the conditions, and special shout out to her.
Yes.
She's really kept the community engaged and has come up with some very unique ways to recognize those contributions. So thank you.
Yes, I second that.
Yep, I agree entirely.
Absolutely.
All right, so as I said, Public Safety, nothing to report tonight. Finance Committee, Commissioner Andrews.
President Zip, before Commissioner Andrews goes, if I could just share one thing, public safety related with the group. just to point out how I think we often thank our police, and we know we have a great department, but I think it's important to just point out some of the things they do when they're not working as a police officer. And recently we had the group of the PBA went shopping and donated all of the groceries to the food cupboard here in Hatfield Township. Almost $3,000 from the PBA donated to our community for those families that can't afford healthy foods over the holidays. So this is what our police do when they're not working. We recognize them for what they do when they're working, but even when they're not, they're serving our community and always finding new ways to serve Hatfield. And obviously it's set at the top by our chief, who sets the tone of service, and the troops follow along. So I just wanted to just point that out to the community and to the board, some of the things they're up to. That's all.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's, thank you for letting us know. And Bill, that's a thank you for not only for what you do, but for the entire team over there. Great job throughout the entire year, and on their own time doing extra special things on top of their regular duties. So please pass on our thanks and our happy holidays to the entire team.
Thank you. Along with being great officers, they're great people. So we're very lucky.
Thank you.
All right. Any other reports or anything else before we get into our action items?
Just the finance report, Tom.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I mentioned it and then it just went right past. Jerry, finance committee. What do you have?
Hey, so we're not going to go through all 400 slides, right?
I was thinking 500 for you, Commissioner.
All right, so Aaron has displayed on the screen the highlights for 2021. And so there won't be any tax increases proposed for the 7th straight year. Overall expenses are only increasing 2%. We're maintaining the police department at 29 officers. We're continuing to invest in our roads, putting in $750,000. We're going to add some digital signs to improve our communications with our residents. Feasibility for the Liberty Bell Trail, paving the School Road Park. This is one of those items that we deferred from 2020 and are now doing in 2021 because of the COVID. We've talked a little bit about the new mural on the Aquatic Center, and Aaron is on top of that. And we're going to begin the new design for the new police station. So overall, I think the township did really well in managing the impact of what COVID-19 could have perhaps done to us, but with Aaron's leadership and the department's leadership, we did very well. So they're the highlights for 2021.
All right, that's great. Those are great highlights to have. Okay, anything else before we anyone else before we move on to action items? No. All right, so let's move on. We have 5 action items tonight. First is resolution 20-26. Is there a motion for approval with regard to 2801 Township Line Road development?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Zimmerman,
Second.
second by Commissioner Andrus. Questions or comments? For those of you following along, this is the land development we talked about a little bit earlier. All right, hearing no questions or comments, I'll call the question. All in favor of resolution 20-26, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing no opposition, that is approved. Next, resolution 20-27. Is there a motion for approval for the Polti Homes land development final approval?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus,
Second.
second by Commissioner Zimmerman. Any questions or comments, commissioners or residents? All right, hearing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor of resolution 20-27, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Next, ordinance number 693. So this is the, there's 2 parts to our budget, which is action item number 3 and action item number 4. And after we have the motion, I'll pass the baton off to Aaron to walk us through it. But is there a motion for approval of the, for ordinance number 693, the 2021 Hatfield Township budget adoption?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus,
Second.
second by Vice President Rogers. Aaron, ball is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. Nothing more to add, really. I think Commissioner Andrus did a good job highlighting on what to expect in 2021. Specifically, no tax increase now for the 7th straight year, thanks to the commissioners. And I think I talked enough about this last month. If any residents want to see the overall entire budget presentation, it's available at hatfield.org or on the Township YouTube channel. Feel free. I think we had thousands of people view that last year. And when I say thousands, I mean 2. So maybe we'll beat that this year. But Commissioner Andrus, I think hit it on the head, and that's it. So another year done, another good solid budget. Looking forward to next year. Thanks, Mr. President.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of ordinance number 693, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing no opposition, ordinance number 693 is approved. Next, ordinance number 694. Is there a motion for approval with regard to the establishment of 2021 taxes, no increase?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Lees,
Second.
second by Commissioner Zimmerman. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of ordinance number 694, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. All right, last but not least is our motion for approval, our annual vote, motion for approval to fill the volunteer board appointments, which is included in the agenda. And we're going to take those as, I'll entertain that as one motion as opposed to multiple individual ones. So commissioners, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus,
Second.
second by the chair. That's me. So with that, I will call the question. Is there any questions or comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the volunteer board appointments, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, they are approved. All right, last is, not second to last, actually, is our township staff reports. Aaron? You're on mute.
Thanks, Mr. President. My wife mutes me often. I think she snuck down here and pressed that mute button. Just have a few good pieces of information to share. Let me get the slides back on. First one, I know the board is aware, but like to mention to the community that Hatfield was successful in another grant award last year. This one from the state through the ARLI grant, which is a transportation program, and the township, my screen's not sharing, township was successful in receiving $300,000 to improve different pedestrian crossings throughout the town. And specifically what that means, and a lot of this is not going to be too noticeable by the community, right? It's not as if we're building a trail or sidewalks or things like that, but this is going to improve what we currently have out there for those of you who are crossing these intersections. So it's an upgrade in technology, really. So Unionville and North Penn, which was identified as an issue during our walkability study. So that hopefully some of these will then lead to some connections that we want to make. Cowpath and Line, 309 and Walnut, 309 and Sterling. All of those pedestrian crossings are going to get an upgrade in technology. Also some ADA curb ramps at Unionville Pike and North Penn Road for where the bus stops are, and that's going to create some more future connections, hopefully up along Unionville, which was identified by the Walkability Committee led by Vice President Rogers. And then some new controllers, new technology at those intersections as well. So they'll function better, right? It's not going to be something that you're going to visibly see, but it will just work better. So thankfully, the $300,000 will be coming from the state. The only local match for these ARLIs is just the engineering, which we have budgeted through McMahon already. So we won't be writing it a check. This is $300,000 that will upgrade these intersections. Also, we did receive funding for the flashers for the Hatfield Fire Company again. So we applied for 2 grant programs just to be safe, and we actually were successful in both. So We have county money for the flashers for the Hatfield Fire Company and now state money. So our goal now is we're going to get in touch with the county and repurpose those funds, that $60,000 that were awarded to Hatfield for something else that fits under the grant guidelines. So we'll be working on that early 21 to see where we can apply those funds. But we're 2 for 2 this year with grants. And speaking of grants, just to take a quick peek at this, just transportation related grants over the last 8 years. We're now over $6 million worth of funds that we brought into the Hatfield community. Have to thank Anton Cooner and McMahon and Associates for taking the lead on all of these. But a lot of these too, the reason for the success though were because of the commissioners. Commissioners put us in a position that made the applications more favorable and moved us up the list, specifically Cowpath and Arvilla. That grant for $1.9 million does not come to Hatfield Township if it wasn't for the commissioners making some aggressive moves over years of buying a gas station, buying the 3 homes. At each time when we did that, remember, we were rejected from that grant twice. And then the commissioners made some more moves and we moved up that list because of our commitment to the project and putting in some more local money, which, by the way, just as a reminder to the community, local money means, in this case, was money paid by developers through the impact fee. So no taxpayer money was spent on that project, which is pretty amazing. But over $6 million. And, and sometimes when we receive these grants, we hear some chirping from residents saying, why aren't taxes being lowered or things like that. But what I want to point out is none of these are for operational items, right? We're still operating the township 7 years without a tax increase. These are items that just would never have happened if it wasn't for our success with these grants. Cowpath or Villa would never be realigned without these grants, right? That's almost a $3.5 million project all in. That's 35% of our budget, right? It just wouldn't have happened. So replacing bridges, fixing intersections, all these upgrades in the trail system happened because of the success that we've had with grants. So when you look at a $10 million budget and to bring in over $6 million in the last 8 years, that's pretty significant. And that's a lot of the work and the leadership by the board. And we thank you for putting us in that position. So that's one good news. The second is, commissioners, we have an agreement to be considered by the board tonight. We talked about this project for 60 years. The connector road, it's coming. 21, section 2 here is being bid. So what you see from Allentown Road, the blue section, all the way to Hatfield Souderton Pike is what phase 2 will bring as far as the connection for that road. What we're discussing here tonight is something that we have known about for a while, but this would just create the action to approve the agreement. You see from, I know it's not the greatest view. This is from their website. I think, Deb, you're already getting a headache, I think, from looking into there. I can see it. But from Elroy to Cowpath, there will be a 12-foot walking path. At sections will be outside of a sound barrier wall. There's going to be a sound wall that goes through those neighborhoods, the THP Westport Farms development. And when it's not in the sound wall, it'll be next to the road. It's not going to be a shared road. It's going to be a dedicated 12-foot asphalt trail used for biking and walking and hiking, whatever it is that you want to get into. So that section of the trail will be paid for by PennDOT, installed by PennDOT. At the end, will be given then to the township. It was something we've been aware of this for years. Now we need some formal action to accept and to say that we'll maintain it moving forward. The other portion of the trails on the other side, which will be owned and maintained by Franconia. Unfortunately, the trail has to stop at Cowpath because after Cowpath, it takes a pretty significant dip over by the water tower and the BAPS community. So they weren't able to put a trail in there. So it's going to end at Cowpath, but it's going to be a pretty significant public improvement. And our goal then is for next year, as we go through the feasibility study for the Liberty Bell Trail, to find a way to make that connection. So you could be in Upper Gwynedd and be on a continuous trail through Lansdale, through North Wales, through Hatfield, all the way up through Franconia, all on a nice, at many times a 10 or a 12-foot asphalt path. Other times it'll be a sidewalk or share the road type setup. But this will be a nice public improvement paid for by the state and then ultimately will be assumed by the township and no surprises. So what the board is considering tonight, Mr. President, is simply to vote on an agreement saying that we understand we will take the trail at the end of construction and then we will maintain it in the future. So if we could have action on that, Mr. President, that'd be great.
Sure. Yep. So, all right. So we're talking about resolution 20-28. Is there a motion for approval with regard to the trail maintenance agreement for the 309 Connector Road?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus,
Second.
second by Vice President Rogers. Any questions or comments?
Do we have an idea how much it's going to cost us to maintain that trail?
Yeah, it's a
Annually?
good question, Commissioner Lees. Annually, our cost on an annual basis will be to remove snow. And truthfully, many trails we actually don't remove snow from. So we'll have to determine how often that one is used. We may want to consider removing snow from the trail. But beyond that, there won't be much maintenance for several years down the road.
And once those several years elapse, do we have any idea projected how much it's going to cost us annually?
Annual cost, again, won't be much. The true cost will come 30, 40 years down the road when it will need to be replaced, like we're doing right now in School Road on those trails, which is about, I think we have budgeted, that's a whole parking lot though in there too, $250,000 for a lot more asphalt in School Road. It's going to be a significant cost to replace, but it's going to be a long time down the road. I would imagine that would be needed. The volume's not going to be significant on there. I would think that would damage the asphalt to where we would have to do it anytime in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, good questions. Anyone else questions or comments? All right, if not, I'll call the question. All in favor of resolution 20-28, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that resolution is approved. Aaron, anything else under manager's report?
That's all I have, Mr. President. I think we're heading over to the blue room now.
We are. We're moving over to the solicitor's report. Mr. Solicitor, what do you have for us this evening?
Actually, it's my parents' room, not the blue room, but you know. First thing is I need authorization to sign the assessment appeal stipulation. It's for an increase to the warehouse. So do we have a motion for that?
So the chair will make a motion.
Second.
Second.
So John, just give us a little bit of background so the
Sure,
folks.
that's the address is 1100 Swab Road. I think it's the old Jet Plastica warehouse. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right.
I used to play there when I was a kid. The school district filed a tax assessment appeal and the property owner in the district worked out a settlement. It's an increase about $2,000 annually to the township. It's a good settlement, especially in this COVID time. And then the second thing, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you guys this year, all kidding aside. You guys are a great team.
Thank you. We're going to finish off that motion though. So I still got to call the question. So for those of you who don't know, periodically our solicitor comes in more often with good news than not with a tax appeal settlement agreement, which means that property owner will have reached an agreement with the school district more so than with us. And if they agree to, they have a resolution that increases their taxes in the simplest of terms. We are the beneficiaries of that, or at least a small percentage of that. Hence the reason why John just mentioned that we'll see, is that $2,000 increase is just related to Hatfield or is that to overall?
No, that's just for Hatfield. It's actually $1,971.55. So not quite.
Okay. So every little bit helps and we appreciate the solicitors do a fantastic job for us. So thank you for that, John. With that, I will call the question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. All right. John, anything else?
No, that's it. We gotta hurry up here. My parents want to get to sleep, so. Wow.
John is working remotely from mom and dad's house tonight, and we were teasing him about it earlier. All right, so citizens' comments, folks. Aaron, if you want to open it up for citizens' comments.
Sure, I'm going to unmute our residents. One
Please.
second. right, they are unmuted if anybody would like to speak.
I just want to say thank you very much for actually a pretty decent year given all the circumstances. Everybody held things together pretty well, and we appreciate it. And we both, all of us here, would like to wish all of you wonderful holidays, and let's hope for another and better, fantastic year for 2021. Everybody stay safe and healthy so that we can do greater things in our township.
Here, here. Well said. Tina and Bob, thank you for everything you do throughout the entire year. And I don't mean just showing up at our meetings. I mean all the I mean all the volunteer stuff that you do, especially when we're when the world was normal. I've said it before, I'll say it again. 2 of our best volunteers for sure. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your kindness.
Any other citizens' comments? All right. Well, before we leave, and it's our last meeting for the year, I do need to announce that we are going to meet, the board is going to meet an executive session to discuss personnel after this meeting. And other than that, on behalf of the board, for everyone who's here and then anyone who watches, we definitely want to wish everyone a happy holiday. And as Tina and Bob said, very well said, safe and healthy 2021 for everyone. So anyone else want to comment before I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Hey, I want to thank everyone in the staff, Tom, or Aaron. Again, I appreciate the effort you put in it. You guys make it look really easy for us, and that's a lot of work on behind the scenes to carry forth the vision that's been in place. So please extend my appreciation to the staff, the police department, and especially those folks out tonight that will be plowing the roads until whatever time they finish.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I concur with that. Yes, very much so. Thank you, everyone.
Same here. Good job. Fantastic job.
Well done.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and we will close our last meeting for December, but then we will be back in the beginning of January. So is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zimmerman. Any questions or comments? Folks, have a great end of the year. We'll see you in January. Thanks to all. And I'll call the question. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? If not, have a great evening. Be safe. Stay warm. Thanks, everyone.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.